I gave you the choice at 29 of the players available, and you can also trade back if you want. Which player would you take, or would you move out of that spot?
Out of those players, I would take Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Would you?
Defensive back, Alabama. I think you'd have pretty good intel talking to Brian Branch, seeing if this is a guy that works. Got good size, is 6'1" corner. Been playing against pros basically the whole time because that's the SEC. So that's where I'd go.
You like it better than Lassiter from Georgia, the other?
He's bigger, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I went with Chop Robinson, but it's interesting because we basically mirror what the people did. It was a dead heat between like literally the exact same number of people that sent us texts, tweets, and posted between McKinstry and Chop Robinson. Those were by far the two most popular choices. Trade back and Jer'Jon Newton were the 3 and 4. 5 was Keon Coleman. And
can't help but be intrigued, but It doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Now, as much as we sit here and say that, what if he's the best football player available?
Well, I'd say quickly it doesn't make sense, and yet does it? Let's see. Because you got, obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have Jamison Williams. Who's the third receiver?
Josh Reynolds, who's a free agent. Khalif Raymond, who's kind of perfectly cast in his fourth receiver role. They did take Antoine Green last year, and they believe in draft and develop. I don't know how much faith they have in him. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that what was interesting was when you looked at the way the rest of the first round played out, only Lassiter went 30, 31, 32. Now, you don't know that when you're on the board, but that means a bunch of those guys would be available in the second round. McKinstry, Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac, the two defensive tackles.
Which is great if you're picking at the top of the second round.
Right. Which makes the trade back possibility. If one of those teams near the top of the second round, it makes an offer that includes obviously their second round pick and something else. Getting into the top of the second round could afford you the possibility of getting one and maybe two of those guys if they drop down to the bottom of the second round. But trading back is something that it's going to be wild because the draft's in Detroit and the fans are going to be sitting around partying and drinking all night. And then when the lines are on the clock, if
they announce a trade at the end of the first round.
But I'm just telling everybody.
And you have to wait till tomorrow to see who they take.
But everybody buckle up, right? I mean, this is a strong possibility.
Yeah, and I think the vast majority of Lions fans are of the opinion of whatever Brad Holmes wants to do, let him do it. Mm-hmm. If you take a wide receiver there, if Keon Coleman's there and he takes Keon Coleman, I'm like, okay, that's good. If he takes a defensive tackle, fine. Take a defensive back, fine. I mean, there aren't many positions that you could take at that position where I'd be like, no.
Well, there's
other than running back, because they don't need a running back, clearly.
Yeah.
Tight end, I wouldn't do it. But offensive lineman, can you see offensive line there? Absolutely.
I could, especially obviously, if they're two starting guards, if one of the two of them are brought back, that's about – I hesitate to say this because I think it's completely meaningless. You could get the best guard in the draft, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a great player. You just never know. You probably wouldn't at that point. But the way these things play out, some years, whether it's the best guard or not, are you going to get a good one? It's probably too high for Zinter. I don't know if the Powers Johnson kid out of Oregon also is projected as a guard. He's a center at Oregon. So I don't know. We'll see. But it's harder to project the field of players that might be available at 29, given that you get to that point, you can go in a direction. I think trading back
is a real possibility.
If screams Brad Holmes, which is, if you look at the first 4 picks they got last year, which were all in the first 2 rounds, as a result of trading back, if they trade back here and get an additional second, and I don't know what else you'd get for it. It depends how far back you go, but they already have 2/3. So maybe they could get a second and a third to trade their first round pick and have 2 seconds and 2/3. This sounds to me like in Brad Holmes' wheelhouse to go find talent, right?
Yeah. You would think. I'm just trying to think of a team that might do that. Let's say the Giants, they're drafting and they're like, you know what? The top 3 quarterbacks are off the board. We're not looking there. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and draft an offensive lineman or a wide receiver with their 6th pick overall, and then they come calling and say, hey, Michael Penix hasn't gone yet. Let's go get Penix.
What about Washington? Oh, they'd probably take a quarterback at 2.
I would imagine they'd take a quarterback at 2.
Would Minnesota be a candidate at 42?
Well, they've traded with Detroit before.
And they had it was a Kwesi Owosu. What's the name of their general manager?
Something like that.
Yeah, would he be? That doesn't seem to stop him in the past, right?
No.
And they are picking relatively early in the 2nd round, so that could be done. It's going to be a lot of fun and very, very interesting. But the warning to Lions fans is there's no guarantees that they will draft in the 1st round.